current field of narcissistic abuse recovery has failed to capture the depth, structure, and symbolic devastation experienced by survivors. It has, for too long, treated narcissism as either a behavioural disorder in the perpetrator or an attachment vulnerability in the victim. In both cases, the psychic reality of collapse, what actually happens to the survivor's sense of self, remains untouched. Mirrored psychic inversion theory, MPIT, was created to address this failure. It exists to speak not to the narcissist, but to the annihilated architecture of the self left behind in the wake of fantasy, idealization, and collapse. MPIT begins where most models stop. It does not focus on red flags, behavioural checklists, or generic trauma bonds. Instead, it enters the internal world of the survivor. It enters the moment the external gaze of the narcissist replaced the survivor's internal coherence. It maps what happens when the idealizing mirror becomes the cold screen, and the survivor's selfhood is replaced not with emptiness, but with the narcissist's disintegrated fragments. At its core, MPIT holds that the survivor does not simply lose themselves, they become inverted. The narcissist does not merely harm, they hollow, then replace. They do not just extract supply, they overwrite symbolic structure. This is what MPIT names as mirrored psychic inversion, a process by which the survivor's internal symbolic order is mirrored, reversed, and colonized. Most of what is called healing in the recovery space today is, at best, a strategy for managing symptoms. It focuses on somatic regulation, on boundaries, on staying no contact, on finding joy, on rewriting your narrative. But what if the narrative you are trying to rewrite is not yours? What if the voice in your head telling you you're broken, addicted, overthinking, or too intense is not your voice at all? What if it is the remnant of the shared fantasy, echoing within your internal world like a ghosted imago? MPIT refuses to pathologize survivors. It holds no diagnosis for them. Instead, it offers a symbolic diagnosis of what happened to them, not what they are. MPIT is not interested in treating your codependency. It is interested in showing you where, how, and why your symbolic self was inverted. It names collapse not as weakness, but as structural consequence. It views survival not as addiction, but as reflexive attunement to a false relational world. One of MPIT's foundational assertions is that the collapse of the survivor is not a reaction, it is a reconstitution. The survivor reorganizes their psyche around the narcissist's gaze. They internalize not just the voice, but the rhythm, the tempo, the contradiction of the narcissist's fantasy. And because the fantasy is incomplete, rooted in the narcissist's own developmental fracture, it cannot sustain symbolic life. It collapses inwards, and the survivor collapses with it. This is not codependence, it is symbolic annihilation. MPIT names this process through its own internal system: the anticipatory shadow reflex, ASR3, the collapse-induced psychotic regression, CIPR, the Hall of Mirrors, the organizing gate, the inverse mirrored reflexive apathy, IMRA, and the false self-actualization phase. Each of these names a structure within the collapse. Each gives the survivor a way to make sense of the unspeakable. Perhaps most radical is MPIT's refusal to allow clinical or academic abstractions to overwrite lived pain. The question of whether narcissism is genetic is treated in MPIT as irrelevant. It does not matter what caused narcissism, it matters what narcissism caused in you. The theory shifts focus away from etiology and back towards consequence. You are not collapsed because someone had a gene. You are collapsed because you were psychically captured by an externalized fantasy, mirrored into submission, and then left holding a structure that was not your own. MPIT also clarifies that survivors are not empaths. No such thing exists except in the world of victimhood. They are not addicted to love. They are not trauma bonded in the simplistic ways the current space implies. Instead, they are living inside an introjected false reality, one in which their sense of truth, time, and identity has been symbolically co opted. MPIT shows that the survivor is not confused. They are inverted. They are not helpless. They are still responding to the narcissist's internal code long after the narcissist is gone. Recovery in MPIT is not a return to the past. It is not a reawakening of the old self. It is a construction of a new symbolic architecture, one built from awareness, authorship, and clarity. The survivor does not simply heal, they reclaim authorship over the story they were written into. They extract the narcissist's voice from their own. They reconstitute a central ego. They walk back out of the Hall of Mirrors, not by escape, but by learning to see. Mirrored psychic inversion theory does not promise comfort. It offers something rare: comprehension, a true map of collapse, a framework that names what the survivor became, not just what they felt. It does not flatter and it does not placate. It exposes the deep internal hijack, then points towards a path of symbolic repair. In a world of diluted diagnosis, MPIT is pure signal. In a world of fragments, it is structure. In a world of content, it is architecture. This is not a trend. This is not an angle. This is not another trauma brand. MPIT is a mirror held to the survivor, not to reflect back what was lost, but to reveal what was never truly theirs to carry. It is not about surviving narcissism. It is about recovering authorship, and that changes everything. Peace out. Loads of love.